After about 3.5 hours of driving, I have made it to a new city, Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hi, I'm Will. I spent my 20s living in a boring area with not much to do, and so I decided to pack up and travel the world through Airbnbs while working a remote job. I was willing to do whatever it took to live a more fulfilling and enriching life. Join me on my adventure, turmoils, trials, and tribulations.
After about 3.5 hours of driving, I have made it to a new city, Raleigh, North Carolina. It was definitely bittersweet and definitely somewhat anxious moving to a new place, but it's still early on in my adventure, and I knew staying in Charlotte for too long would have gotten boring. In fact, I think it was already starting to get to too boring of a rhythm. Like if I had stayed there for a few more months, just like the amount of time I spent in New York City, it would have ultimately been a routine, and I don't think there would have been that much new. It would have just ended up being like I was living there long term. You know, I'd be doing chores on the weekend. Maybe I stopped by a disc golf course or fitness class. Maybe I stopped by the local board game store, but it would have gotten too boring, and I was already itching to go. But now that I'm here in this new place, it is a little bit nerve-wracking. So what I'm doing here is I'm sick of driving. There's residential areas all the way back there, and I am actually walking on this road, which is the entrance to a just local park nearby. And you know, I just got here. It's already the evening, so I'm not going to be going crazy and, you know, exploring downtown or the city, because I am a little exhausted already. So I'm looking just for something low-key today, and that'll just be a walk. It's interesting, things are already a little different than what I'm used to. Like, look at all the weird stuff hanging from the trees. I don't know if it's some type of vine or invasive species. It kind of looks like something out of a Dr. Seuss, literally out of a Dr. Seuss book. And then over here I see, like, it's almost like bamboo offshoot, like something from Vietnam. Like, it's interesting how, like, things are very familiar in a way. There's like Chick-fil-A, there's McDonald's, a lot of things I recognize, but you know, just a few hundred miles can have a noticeable difference in the culture and the foliage. So I'm gonna ramble a bit more and call it a day for this video. I think I am excited, but I'm also anxious to be here. You know, part of me does want to settle down one day. Oh, I think this might be the entrance to the park. Part of me does want to settle down in the city one day, but it's still early on in my journey, and although I will miss it, Charlotte has grown on me. There's friendly people there. It's lively. There's more young people there than I expected, and more to do there. You know, you think, oh, it's not New York City, it's not a major city. I live in the suburbs, but it was definitely fascinating. Now, so far, the place I'm staying at looks pretty darn cool, and so I think for the price as well, it's like fantastic of a deal. And there's all these small things I'm learning. You know, I'm learning I'm not the only one who has gone on this adventure. I've found other people have done this as well, as I, you know, meet new people. But also, it's still a rarity, and I'm also learning that things are going to be fresh, new, and that's sometimes scary. You know, like this. Look at this park trail. I've never seen something like this. It's so wide. There's so many strange trees. It's more spacious than I'm used to in the park, and empty. But you know, you notice different little things, and you know, whether it's the fire hydrant being red, or people being a bit different, or the activities and the local areas being slightly different. I'm just gonna come into it and just experience. Not everything's going to work out and be as great as you think, but it's probably not as bad as you think either. There's probably going to be pros and cons to this place, so I'm coming in here with level-headed expectations. But I will say, I do not regret any part of this journey. I mean, look at this beautiful place. And also, I remember back when I was living for years in my little townhouse. I thought, given the price and everything, that this is as good as it gets. And I was living in a cramped little kitchen. It was actually almost as bad as New York City. And I just thought, this is what you have to deal with here, and this is just like the price you have to pay for what you can get. But then I moved here, and just the kitchen immediately is like much bigger. And so it's like, wow, it's like, maybe you think that this is as good as the world gets, and because of that you prevent yourself from even exploring and trying it out. I think there's always assumptions. I met someone like a week or two ago at a CrossFit class, and she mentioned how, I'd love to live in Virginia or Maryland, but it's too expensive there. And I told her it's really not. It may be a bit more expensive, but it's really not that much more. And she's from like the more country, not even country, just like somewhat north of Charlotte. And so those are assumptions that you need to test with facts. And just through my adventure, I got here and I'm like, wow, this is a huge kitchen. And, for the same price, sometimes you're getting a much larger space, a much larger quality of life. Oh, wow, look at that. Yeah, there would never be a river like this in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Maybe the Virginia area, but you'd have to drive for it probably. I think in the past, or even now, in my head, I'm like, how long should I stay for? And I wrestle with that, because it's like, if I stay for too long, that's an issue, because staying in for like 4 months in the city is not going to get me pretty far across the country like I want to anytime fast or reasonable. And staying that long, usually you already get a sense for it by that point. But then staying too short, and currently my plan is to stay here 2 weeks. I might extend that. Staying too short, you only get a short taste. And I think the benefit of what I'm doing is that I get more of a taste than the typical road tripper who's spending a day or two per city. I mean, that's really just a little tiny sample of the city. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty good at getting to the bottom of just the general vibe of a city, as I've done in a few others before. I went to all sorts of things in Charlotte: Latin dance classes, running clubs, parks, disc golf courses. But I'm coming to realize that, maybe it's okay. I don't have to over-analyze, over-scrutinize, anything like that. As long as I put myself out there to a reasonable extent, I don't necessarily need to have this, super analyzed picture of every little aspect of the city. Just like a decent rough benchmark would be great. So I've only experienced one other place that is kind of like this, with this wide river, the trees, and then people paddling down, and that is West Virginia, kind of the edge of West Virginia, on the border of normal Virginia. There's a few rivers like that where they sell whitewater rafting and tubing trips. And so it's just very interesting for me. Obviously, this place is a lot less crowded than the touristy rafting place I went to in Virginia. But it is very interesting. You know, this is not something that I see often, and I think yeah, what I was trying to say earlier is that there is a little bit of a fear of like, man, like what if I get the wrong impression of a city? Because with Charlotte, you know, some of that did happen until I ended up staying longer and getting more of a sense of it. For example, I thought there really was a lack of diversity there, and that is still technically true. There's a ton of Caucasian people, and I was often the only Asian person in a room. However, there was also a lot of other ethnic diversity, of other minorities, especially when you went to certain grocery stores, department stores, dance classes, and items like that. So it ultimately ended up being something where, you know, once I got to experience a bit more of the place, things opened up a bit, and I also found some places that were more welcoming and friendly. Um, with all that being said, you know, I felt like Charlotte, I spent the just right amount of time. I probably could have done it in a month, to be honest. Um, Maybe could have even stayed there happily for a month and a half before I started getting really bored. Um, so I'm just gonna take Raleigh one step at a time, and yeah, you know, it's not gonna be. I'm not gonna figure out everything here, but I have a general sense of what stuff appealed to me. Here's like a burnt out fireplace, and I'm just gonna try those things out. You know, I'm a fan of dance. I'm a fan of fitness. I'm a fan of nature and taking walks. So we'll see what happens, and you know, we'll go from there. Uh, so I'm continuing my walk along this park road, and it's so inspiring and exciting because I made this happen. When you think about it, I am in this area, I'm walking this park because I made it happen. I'm the one who got a new job, pitched the idea to my managers and bosses, and I'm the one who chose to come to this place, this city and area. So it's just so exciting, and I think it's such a good balance too, because if I had just out of the gate, out of college, done this, like I probably would have taken it more for granted, or you know, any other consequences of any young person who hits early success. You might just get a big head or just think you're so amazing. But for me, having lived a relatively boring life for so many years and partially thought that was it, and then was able to do this, that just caused such a, it creates a different feeling. And I think, you know, so far I found that, yeah, in general, whether you're in a big city like New York or here or elsewhere, things are similar enough. I mean, yeah, some could argue, oh, New York's such a different thing, but I don't know. I feel like in general, the vicissitudes of it ultimately come down to, you know, working most of the weekdays and then exploring afterwards. And of those things, there's certain differences, but the general theme is the same. You know, there's certain activities like fitness class, parks, recreational activities, improv class that you can find anywhere. But, you know, I think there's just enough difference so far that it is so exciting. Like this whole residential area near the parks here, that's something that's common to an extent and something I'm familiar with, but there's just enough difference. The houses are cleaner, the roads are bigger, the parks have different trees, and yeah, even in certain cities, there's certain ebbs and flows. Some have a lot more diversity of food choices, like halal food, and then others have more of a access to certain outdoor activities or access to acting classes because it's just of the different industries that exist there. So enough of my rambling. I think we'll see. We'll see what happens here. And yeah, today's just a day I'm gonna take it slow. And I think, who knows, in Raleigh I might just take it slow as well. But I'm off to a good start. So far, no issues. You know, there's obviously worries like, oh, what if the internet's faulty here? Will that affect work? But you know, it's been pretty smooth so far. We'll continue it. And this, you know, just nice, refreshing, slow-paced walk is perfect. You know, it's not even that many people, at least compared to New York. You know, New York, there's just excess people, even in the parks. Well, not excess, but like much more than this. So we'll see what happens, and you know, we do what we can here. I think one thing I have learned is that just staying in your home when you get to a new area is not good for me, because that creates more anxiety. Just cooped up in my room. I learned that back a few years ago when I went to Southeast Asia for a vacation. You know, you gotta, even though you're tired and you're anxious, go out there, explore, because otherwise your imagination, or at least mine, gets ahead of me, and I start thinking, oh, the world's a big bad place outside, and then I get very anxious just being cooped up in my room. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, just a nice simple day. I'll probably try and cook something in the kitchen, that big large kitchen, afterwards. I'm thinking pulled pork through my Instant Pot.